Book Blitz! Welcome back to Eldest, otherwise known as a pool of acid into which Dylan reluctantly, gradually lowers himself.
It's true. Dude, is it true? Oh my god. It's I was struggling today, man. I was struggling when I was listening to this crap.
Um, are we hitting any roaring chapters today? I don't.
Yeah, we should.
We're at the beginning of a session.
Yeah, we should hit at least like two. I think at least two.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. There's two. So we've got some bright spots. We've got some roaring chapters going on.
No, even
Yeah.
even the roaring chapters aren't ideal. I mean, they don't get me wrong. They are way better than the Eragon chapters. Like, I really wish he had never written the first book, and had just instead just written a book just on Roran, like running from the Empire. Yeah.
Yeah, like, I mean, the roaring bits are far better. Anyway, today it's Hrothgar's gift. So after their meetups the previous night with Triana and Nasawada and Angela, Eragon and Saphira prepare to leave Tronchim, and it's early in the morning. They've met at the one of the enormous doorways that leads into the walls of the mountain. And even once they go through these doors, it's going to take them a long time just to trek through the tunnels that lead out of the mountain, because this thing is just so vast. But they arrive at these doorways, and Auric approaches. And he, as you may remember, is going on this excursion with them. And so Auric has brought some gifts from Hrothgar. He's brought the repaired shield and armor for Eragon, as well as the armor for Saphira. That all this has been repaired by the dwarven smiths. And Hrothgar offers Eragon, last of all, the helmet. And he shows Eragon that the helmet has been reworked. It's got this new decoration on it that shows like the crest of Durmgrank's, I think that's how you pronounce it, in Jedum, which is Auric's and Hrothgar's clan. Because the way the dwarven culture works is it's 13 clans, among the leaders of whom is chosen each king. And so basically, by giving this to Eragon, Hrothgar is inviting Eragon to become literally part of his family. He's basically offering to adopt Eragon, basically as though he is a full-blooded dwarf, with all the rights that comes with that. And Eragon and Saphira kind of wrestle with this for a second. They're like, is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? Is this another attempt for someone of power to try and gain control over us? Like, what does this all mean? And they ultimately decide this is probably a gesture of gratitude for Saphira's ludicrous offer to repair the Star Sapphire, as well as just general gratitude for everything Eragon's done with the Battle of Varthandur and slaying Durza and everything else. And so they accept Auric's offer and Hrothgar's offer, and so Eragon does this little ceremony, and he becomes a full-blooded, well, not full-blooded, but a ceremonial-blooded dwarf. He's basically accepted as a dwarf now, and specifically, this is important, in Hrothgar's clan. He's not just an orc. He's not.
He's not just an orc.
I was thinking of Auric. He's not just a dwarf. he's in Hrothgar's clan of dwarves. And so Nasawada and Arya finally arrive, and Nasawada already knows what's going on, and she's like, hey, you accepted the offer. I guess that's actually probably a good thing, because now all three races have some sort of claim on you. The humans through your oath of fealty to me, and the elves through your bond with Saphira as a dragon rider, and the dwarves through being part of the dwarven culture now. So all three races have a claim, so in a way it keeps everything even, so it's probably a good idea. And so they kind of are given their parting blessings, and They make their way, Eragon, Saphira, Arya, and Oric, as well as I think some guards. They make their way into the mountainside tunnels, and they start on their journey to Elf World. And that's the chapter.
We start our journey to the Elf World. Like, I don't know, just like how you said that.
That wasn't a bad Murtagh impression, actually.
God, I forget what Murtagh sounds like because you get
pretty much like that. He's got like this this like Scottish brogue going on. He's like I didn't think that you. I can't even do it, dude. I'm too. I can't even do it. I'm too tongue tied right now.
No, dude, it's because it's like I didn't ask for this. The only thing he ever gave me was this scar. Like
yeah, this scar on my back.
This scar on my back.
Singing true, dude. It's that's what he said. And I gotta say, it's one of my favorite voices that the guy does.
Yeah. Well, because his human voices, like you said, are the best ones. Like those are the ones that actually make sense.
Well, and I'm not opposed to the dwarven voices either. Like,
dude, those are awful. Those are so bad.
I like that you can tell, and this is actually probably the point. You can tell just by sound, like, are you listening to a human or a dwarf or etc. Like, and you can. I like that part of it because as far as the actual value that listening to it as an audiobook adds over reading it as text, like. Anyway, I'm not opposed to it. I think it's clever, but it's not. I'm not gonna say it's the most wonderful sound in the world. I would want to listen to it forever, but it does the job. Like,
I'm not saying I would want to marry him, but I'm saying I would want to listen to him get married. If you know what I mean.
So, okay, so a few things, and we've kind of touched on some of this already, but just the back and forthing with Eragon and Saphira about whether or not to accept the Dwarf King's offer is yet another example of, and this is one of the few examples actually that I kind of believe. I can kind of understand where they're coming from because the dialogue itself is actually kind of realistic, where they're questioning, oh, is this another attempt to gain manipulation over us? Is Hrothgar being legit here, or is he trying to manipulate us? Like, the way they're talking about it makes sense because it's a very, yes, there is political intrigue associated with it, but it's less, the question is less about this intrigue. And it's more about just this simple question of, is this gift more than it seems? Which is a very human, very day-to-day life question some people can ask. Like, is this an attempt to manipulate me? Or is it a genuine offer out of the goodness of their heart? Which is a very different matter than, and it comes across very different to me in the book than, what's Congress? Like,
God. Dude, for real. God, is he so bad? It's just like, yeah, but no, well, I feel like Hrothgar, when I remember reading this book the first time, I remember specifically that the dwarves were much more interesting and like Eragon's interaction with dwarves made the most sense compared to other characters, like, because for instance, you don't have like the weird like, this is technically a girl, and therefore Eragon, for whatever reason, has to like somewhat want to date her because he's never seen girls before. Like, it's a little bit more. I don't know how to describe it. Like Oryx, they make more sense. Like, they're explaining things to Eragon, they're interacting with him. Like, they're creating an environment in which they are painting a picture to Eragon, guiding him through things. I don't know about it. And I think just because of that, the orc characters feel more real because you don't have this weird, like, I'm vague.
The dwarf characters.
Yeah, you know, like
We keep saying orcs, damn it. It's because of
the
Oric. It's because that's his
orc
name.
characters feel more real. like they have a soul. Like, oh god, that was bad. I broke the accent right then.
No, but I totally agree. And I actually, from the little I remember of Brissinger, which is the third book, there is a bunch of like dwarven intrigue and political intrigue and stuff that Eragon is actually a part of because of his decision to accept Hrothgar's invitation in this book. Which, from what I remember, I actually liked back when I first read the book, but then again, that was back in like what, 2008 or something,
Yeah.
2009.
Yeah.
So we'll see where I stand on that when we get there. But so the point is this whole thing does lead somewhere. This isn't just a yet another random decoration added to Eragon's lapel. Like, this is an actual plot. It's an actual plot device. It actually means something. It actually has consequences that go somewhere. So in that sense, I don't have any issues with it. But you're exactly right when you're talking about the dwarf culture, and I'm going to have more to say about this when we get to a few chapters from now. But when we actually see Eragon in another dwarven city with another dwarven culture. But here's the difference, okay? And we're going to see this repeated several times in the first like quarter of this book in their journey to get to Elismira. It's that friggin' the dwarven culture, we are shown, we experience it firsthand. We are exposed to it as Eragon is. And so as a result, dwarven culture and the rifts between the clans and the significance of the social interactions and their rituals and their religion and all these different things, to me, feel way more real and way more credible than elven culture ever does. And here's why. We're shown dwarven culture. We are discovering it with Eragon firsthand, usually. And part of that is because dwarven culture in the story is less important. And so the way you can tell if something is important to Paulini in one of these books is if he spends a lot of time explaining it to you beforehand. And if he does, then according to him, it's very important. And dwarven culture doesn't have that distinction, and it actually greatly improves the way that dwarven culture comes across. It makes it way more interesting. And for example, what we're about to experience in a large number of chapters moving forward is we're going to hear all sorts of stuff about Elismira, about the elves, about their customs and their culture and how he's supposed to give these different greetings, and he has to give the greetings in the correct order, and there's all this social hierarchy stuff he has to abide by, and he needs to not be ignorant and blah, blah, blah. We're going to hear all this information front-loaded before Eragon even interacts with another elf outside of Arya and a couple of others. Before he even sets foot in the elven homeland, we're going to know all this. How do I put it? We're going to know all these pleasantries. We're going to know all this fanfare, all these social faux pas and all this stuff before we ever actually see the elven homeland. By contrast, we experience a faux pas. We experience a dwarven cultural
Yep. like we experienced dwarven culture, like, instead of in elven culture where you're told about a faux pas, in the dwarven culture you're shown the faux pas. It happens. Like,
yeah, it just happens. And so it makes it so much more believable, and it makes it so much more interesting, because it feels like because the reason Eragon's going to Elismira is his training. That is what the majority of our time in Elismira is spent focused on, right? But what we lose in the process is any chance to get actually invested in the elven culture in the first place. It's just too much information too soon, I think. And that actually is part of what weakens the early parts of the Elven Kingdom sequence. But we'll get there, because that's most of this book. Aren't you excited? Anyway, so do you have any other thoughts about this chapter?
I mean, I think that so this chapter, Eragon is adopted by Hrothgar.
Yeah.
What I think is interesting is that it happens at a distance, from what I understand.
Hrothgar's not there himself.
Yeah, it's like, okay, so Oric presents it, and it's kind of private. And I can't actually remember if it's ever like made more formal. Like if there's like a ceremony with Hrothgar ever. I can't remember if that occurs.
I think there is a ceremony for it in the next book, but I don't exactly remember.
That's right. No, I think you're right. I think you're right. The next book is full of filler. And that's one of the fillers. It's like, let's here's a loose end. Let's tie this up. So, okay, Eragon, the now Shade Slayer, Eragon, the former farm boy. Eragon was an orphan. That Eragon. Eragon was an orphan. One of the few things, because Eragon's driving force doesn't really exist. Like, there's nothing that gets Eragon to do anything. He just does it. Like, he doesn't hate Galbatorix. You know what I mean? Like, personally. He's never met the guy. He hated the Razak, but that's over now for whatever reason. He doesn't care at all about them. Like, ever. And so, there's not really like...
It's so true. His emotional investment in the Razak just...
gone.
It's just gone.
Well,
because it's taken over by Rorin, and that's the only... Like, okay, that's a discussion for the next book. I'm sorry for interrupting. Go on.
But, it's like it doesn't make any sense. Like, it doesn't... There's no... Anyway, so he doesn't, like... Why did he not like Galbatorix? He's just told he's supposed to, just because Galbatorix is coming for him. You know what I mean? He just hates Galbatorix because he's the main character and he's the bad guy. Like we said before, this is a D&D session. The character cares about the thing in so much as it's right in front of him, and he has to wonder if the roll's going to work. You know what I mean? Like, and so Eragon doesn't really have a motivation. He just kind of exists, and he does things because he's there. Like, I'm the Shade Slayer, I'm the Dragon Rider, and because I work for the Varden, I'm anti-Galbatorix. But he really doesn't have any motivation beyond himself. Like, he's scheming and doing all this other stuff to, like, get control and power. Anyway, and so, but one of the few things early on in the entire series that is actually of his own volition that you hear him talk about, and he says he wants to know, is who his parents are. So he's got some lingering motivation.
It would be nice to know his heritage.
You know, like there is at least in some shallow way, there is some need to know and need to have a parent. You see what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
And what's weird with Eragon is that he's an orphan, but he doesn't care, like, at all about that. So it just feels like, anyway, so you think that a character that's been orphaned his whole life, and he knows he's an orphan, he's never really, he had Garrow and Rorin, but it's still, like, you're the orphan character, and he's cared enough to actually, like, mention that he wants to know his parents. So you would think that, okay, I'm being adopted by a king. Maybe a dwarf, sure, but I'm being adopted by a king, and I'm also like 5th freaking teen. How old is he? I think he's 15. Is that right?
He's 16 right now.
He's 16, so he's like impressionable as frick. He's got freckles and pimples. His penis became erect 2 years ago. Like, like, it's just, you see what I'm saying? Like, you think that he would actually have some stuff. You see what I'm saying? Like, have some deeper things. Like have some like, oh wow, I have a dad now. Like in a weird way. Like, don't get me wrong, it's still like this sort of like political thing.
No, I totally exactly like he would have some sort of greater connection to Hrothgar, and that might be commented on because now he's been adopted. Like,
Yeah. Like, and it's just like, oh yeah, I'm a dwarf, I guess. Like, I would care. Like, if I was a dwarf prince now, I would care. You know what I mean? I would care a lot, actually. And like, I would be totally invested in becoming as dwarf of a dwarf as a non-dwarf can be. You know what I mean? Like, anyway. So it's just strange. That never happens. He doesn't really ever care. It's never important for him. And that's disappointing. I feel like that really could have been really interesting. What I find as I read this book is that, like particularly when we're talking about dwarven stuff, like Paolini's actually really good at making a really interesting lore. Like, I'm actually kind of interested in the dwarven stories and the dwarven histories and dwarven culture that happen in chapters from now. But he's not very good at actually making a story. Anyway, end rant.
no, but that's something I hadn't thought about, and I'm glad you brought it up because no, totally. Like, surely there. I mean, at least an acknowledgement. I mean, if nothing else, like a little line that said, you know, I guess I kind of have a dad now. Like, I don't know. I mean, that I hadn't thought of that. That totally makes sense, though. Huh. Anyway, but really, I guess that's all I got to talk about for this one. You have anything else?
No, that's about it, mate.
All right. Well, next time we're back with Roran at last. Hammer and tongs.
Hammer and tongs. Hammer and tongs. I've got a hammer and he's got the tongs.
I mean, it's better than our current outro.
That's how that episode ends right there. Boom. Did it. Did it.
Hammer and tongs, hammer and tongs. I got the hammer and he's got the tongs.